Welcome. We're talking technology, leveraging technology in new ways. We're excited to have you join us. Go ahead and come on in, get comfy, and let's warm up the chat box. Tell us where you're logging in from. If you're in Memphis or Nashville or Texas or wherever in the world you are, if you're logging in from home, your home office, work, let us know as we warm up our chat box. That'll get us started as we start doing some Q&A a little bit later on. But I'm Jeremy Park. I'm the CEO of cityCURRENT. We're honored to have you join us. We have an amazing group of panelists. We get to dive into this world of technology. We were doing a rehearsal yesterday and talking about the so many different ways that technology has changed even over just the last year, and how we're basically living in 2030 now here in 2021 in terms of the adoption rate for everything, whether it's Zoom and all the apps and just working remotely. But everything is dramatically shifting in the sense that you look at the way that I would normally tape a radio show. I don't ever foresee going back into a recording studio. And so now with Zoom, the technology being so advanced with the audio, the quality of the audio is almost on par, if not even better in some cases, than what you find in a studio. And you get the video and you get the comfort of being able to meet people wherever they are in the world. It just opens up so many more opportunities. So now that the technology has been normalized, we're all used to using Zoom. It gives us a powerful advantage to leverage. But that's a huge shift to think that we're not going back into a recording studio to tape a radio show. Now everything is going to be digital. You look at taping TV shows, doing it digital. You look at the event experience as even things get back to normal in person. There's going to be a big shift with what we expect in terms of checking in remotely and finding your seat and even networking. There's so many different nuances now that we're going to expect for safety, for security, for just being able to have the mind, peace of mind, going out and normalizing back into society. So there's so many things that technology enables, but it's one of those where you want to know what to expect, especially if you're a nonprofit hosting event. If you have team members working remotely, which I think all of us still do, and that's going to be something that normalizes, even looking forward, is employees are going to expect to be able to work from home. So even when things normalize. So I think there's so many things just to understand on a broad scope, but also too diving into some of the minutia with event experiences, working remotely, networking and collaborating, all these different things that we're going to dive into and touch on. I think it's really important that we have these conversations now so that you can be prepared looking forward. So welcome again, everyone. We're going to get started in just a second, but go ahead and put in the chat box where you're logging in from. And then we're going to basically, the way we're going to kick this off is we'll have each one of the panelists introduce themselves, give you a little bit of the background for their company and what they do, so that way you understand their world. We'll talk about the major trends that they're seeing, so that way they can explain to you, within each of their sphere of influence, what's going on, what they're seeing, not just, looking back in terms of what the pandemic has caused and created, but looking forward, so that way you're prepared for what lies ahead. And then we'll dive into the tips and the recommendations that they have so that you can leverage technology in new ways. And that's exactly what this whole event is focused on, is leveraging technology in new ways. And each of our panelists come from very different spheres of influence, but the one common denominator is they're all cityCURRENT partners, and they're all working together to power the good. And so that's the theme, as always, is collaboration and working to make a difference in the community and power the good. So we are honored to have you join us. We'll give it one more minute for everybody to log in. I'm still seeing the numbers rise, which is awesome. Tell us in the chat box where you're logging in from. If you are here in Tennessee, if you are in Mississippi, if you are in Texas or New York or California. On some of these events, we've reached as far as Thailand and Australia and Holland, and it's pretty amazing what technology will do. And we're a prime example with cityCURRENT is, looking back, we launched last July an e-learning online platform called GrowthCurrent because we saw this huge demand for e-learning and virtual experiences. And obviously for us as an organization that normally would host these types of events in person, we, just like all of you, had to get used to doing it digitally. And so what that has enabled is for us to reach a whole new audience, and even locally, people who might not be able to participate because of geography or work restrictions or whatever it is. now they can log in and participate. So even for us, we've learned a tremendous amount, and the technology has given us some obviously some challenges in terms of headaches learning it all, but really new powerful opportunities to be able to leverage to reach all of you and do these exact things. So we are one of those using technology as well, and learning from our panelists who help us steer our direction as well. So it's a really cool thing to know that everything we're talking about, we ourselves are using as well and trying to leverage technology in new ways. So let's go ahead and get started. Our panelists today, I'm going to introduce them briefly and then we'll dive in. We have Sridhar Sankura. He's the CEO of eBiz Solutions and Think Proxy. We have Amit Kanda. He's the Executive Vice President and COO, the Chief Operating Officer for ProTech Services Group. Derek Reeves and Vinky Mandapati, the co-founders of UpSquad, and you will learn all about UpSquad as we get going as well. But let's start out. Sridhar, go ahead and take it away. Give us a little bit of your world with eBiz Solutions and also Think Proxy. So Sridhar, take it away.
Sure. Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, everyone. My name is Sridhar Sankura. I'm the CEO of eBiz Solutions and also Think Proxy. I'm going to just start off with what eBiz Solutions is. We are a technology company that enables our clients to take advantage of technology and enabling their business to take to new directions in new business models and the digital transformation so they can continuously grow and thrive in this technology phase of our work and our culture right now, everything moving into through technology. And coming to Think Proxy is a platform that enables location intelligence. So we are in various museums around the country. So like people right now with COVID, everything being contactless, it is the right platform. People just use their smartphones to experience museums. As they walk through the museums, it's going to push all the information into their smartphones. So we are bringing the digital and physical space together and making them experience both of them through technology.
Think about it as someone walks in, you've got Bluetooth technology, geofencing, all sorts of technology around it. But basically, when you walk in, you can experience exhibits in a whole new way with your smartphone. And so when you walk up to an exhibit, it pulls up information, videos, purchase now, shirts and memorabilia. So all sorts of things. And even for cities, when you think about it as a city, being able to walk around and all of a sudden landmarks pull up more information and have all sorts of links for more resources. So already as an event, you can start thinking, okay, wait a second, I can add a much more robust event experience or opportunity with a specific place, once again on the smartphone, so it's contactless. So thinking about just using once again technology in new ways, that's a good example. So Amit, ProTech Services Group, take it away.
Thank you, Jeremy. Good morning, everyone. Really excited to be here with the panelists and being part of this great conversation. And thanks to cityCURRENT and Jeremy for putting this together. Greatly appreciated. As Jeremy mentioned, my name is Amit Kanda. I'm the Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer of ProTech Services Group. We are a managed service provider headquartered out of Memphis, Tennessee, with offices in Memphis and Nashville. Under ProTech Services Group, we have 6 divisions. The first one is our staffing division, where we do placement services for IT jobs and some network jobs, or also for some HR and accounting jobs. The second division is our hardware division. We partner with all of the major hardware providers that are out there and are able to provide that as a service or as just a straight out purchase if the clients want so. The third division is our managed services division. We offer management of the entire IT infrastructure, everything from on-prem desktop, laptop to the data center infrastructure or even cloud. As in today's world, everybody's moving to the cloud. So we offer management of the cloud infrastructure with assistance for migration as well. The fourth division is our telecom division, which is everything related to telecom. So your internet circuits, your long haul circuits, connectivity between your various offices, and IP telephony with the cloud telephony services as well. The fifth is our security division, where we provide services to secure your not only the on-prem endpoint devices, but also the ability to provide virtual firewalls for your data center and your cloud infrastructure as well. And last but not least, the sixth division is our support desk as a service. This is a 100% US based bilingual level one, level two, and level three support desk services where we can offer everything from assisting our clients on managing their day-to-day simple needs as the end users needing to reset their passwords, all the way to providing support with their hardware and cloud infrastructure. So again, thank you for this opportunity. Really excited about being part of this panel and discussing what and how technology can help the companies achieve profitability, growth, and security.
One of the other things you talk about just help is they help a lot in the community. They have a whole initiative called ProTech Cares. And so that is a huge piece of the heart of ProTech, is being able to give back, help nonprofits, and make a difference in the community. So we appreciate that as well. So Derek and Vinky, give us some background on UpSquad.
Thank you so much, Jeremy, for having us both today, along with other panelists, Amit and Sridhar. Very excited to talk to a lot of great people here in Memphis and other regions, wherever they are joining from. So just to give a little bit background about ourselves, I'm one of the co-founders of UpSquad. And UpSquad is a custom branded virtual community for organizations. It can be universities, colleges, nonprofits, and many other businesses as well. So we began as a startup at the University of Memphis back in 2018. When we began our journey, we initially focused on universities and colleges, primarily building technology for them to be able to bridge some of the gaps that we have seen initially. And over the past 2 years, and especially after pandemic, we have seen this huge opportunity and the need for various organizations to build virtual communities. So we have seen this huge need, especially in the nonprofit space, because a lot of nonprofits, as we traditionally know, they're all brick and mortar, and a lot of those events are mainly face-to-face. So we wanted to really come into this area and help nonprofits primarily to build virtual communities to engage all their audience very seamlessly. So think of it as building their own custom controlled LinkedIn plus Zoom for their communities. Because a lot of these organizations had challenges, because a lot of these organizations had to go online overnight. So that's where we come in. We help a lot of these organizations to build these virtual communities to help all their users to engage and learn together in a community. So Derek.
Yes, my name is Derek Reeves. It's nice to meet everyone here in the audience. I'm also a co-founder at UpSquad. And I've had the privilege of working and expanding UpSquad for the past 3 years. And before that, I've worked 20 plus years, most recently at FedEx and AutoZone, really building their websites as well as their mobile apps. So it's been great taking that experience to now in our own organization to connect people not only here in Memphis, but connect people around the country in different organizations, whether it's Arizona or New York City, and or Nashville or Arkansas, but also connect organizations around the world. So thank you.
Yeah, and we're using UpSquad as well with cityCURRENT, and just thinking about having your own community that you can connect to, host events, post bulletins. You can do so many things to connect, collaborate within your own custom branded online virtual community. So that's UpSquad. So let's go back to Sridhar, and for each one of you, so already, as you've seen, they all come from different backgrounds with this in terms of technology and what they do, what they specialize in. But now let's get a view of their world and what's in their mind. But let's start with you, Sridhar, on what are the trends that you've seen that have played out during the pandemic, and most importantly, looking forward. So what are you seeing as top of mind in your world for the trends that are really impactful, not just over the last 12 months, but looking forward?
Sure. I think when the pandemic hit, I think people have really realized what technology can do for them, right? And the biggest challenges in technology during the pandemic was, how do you collaborate? How do you communicate? How do you share information, right? Safely and securely. Because even for us, in a 1 day notice, all 100 of our employees had to go home and work from home. But we didn't have any disruption, right? So it took us like 2 hours to get home, and then everybody's back online and they're working. But not everybody was ready for it, right? It was going there, like, so the 2030 path was getting there, but it happened in 2020. So and now only accelerating, right? So the businesses that are very agile, right, understanding this. So there are three components in business, right? So you have business needs, and then you have technology, and then you have data. If you're not connecting all of them together to provide value to the end user, which end users are demanding, and they're changing their demands, right? So the disruptions happening within the industry or global disruption like we had. So the companies today really need to think about what is the future is going to look like. The future is going to be all disruptions. The disruptions can come from the customers itself. They can shift to another brand, or the disruptions come from the competitors, or disruptions could be natural disruption. So companies need to figure out how do they manage those three areas of their business. How do they do the business? How does technology fit into their business? And how does data fit into their business? If they don't have or the connection of all of those three, they're not only going to survive, they're going to be like completely gone out of the businesses. We have seen many companies have done that, right? From BlackBerry to Nokia and all. It's not like they're huge companies, right? So they have all the money, but they didn't have the right mindset. So being that agile and taking your company completely out of the traditional thinking to new, which is like more cloud, right? So you don't want to own anything. You want to pay as you use, and you want to be in a company where things can happen very fast. Like tomorrow, if I want to add a AI to my company, I don't have to spend a year trying to figure it out and trying to program. There are now the APIs. It's a world of APIs. Now you can just hook into any company. Like I can just go hook into AWS or Microsoft Azure APIs and get my AI run in like an hour, right? Or in a day, right? So we have to be thinking about the architecture of our technologies to be very agile, and it has to be plug and play, right? So you don't have to worry about the capital expenses. Technology needs to be looked at as an operational expense, like pay as you go. I think that's what the future is, and that's how we need to start looking at it.
Touch briefly, don't necessarily share the example because we'll come back to it, but talk about what you're seeing with workplace efficiencies, productivity, leveraging technology in that way, because I think that's another powerful piece of this equation.
Definitely. I mean, people are very used to email, right? The email changed our world. The smartphones changed our world. But today, how do you bring all of them together, right? So building the platforms where there's no email, right? So how do you be at one place and navigate through all your day-to-day work, like your meetings, right? So your communications, your emails, and your sharing, your collaboration. How do you bring all of them together at one place? So from our perspective, what we prescribe to most of our clients who already have all this infrastructure and technology, like for example, Microsoft Office 365. Pretty much most of the companies are on Office 365, but all they used was email and calendar so far. During the pandemic, we probably got into like 20-30 companies just use their existing technology but changed how they behave, right? So like I said yesterday, like this is all about behavioral change. People need to stop thinking about good old days. There is no good old days, right? So you got to see in the forward, right? Moving forward, it's bringing everything together on platforms like what Venki's platform, or like, and also thinking about security, how you do it, bringing everything at one, and then connecting everything through, like for example, we use Office 365 to connect all of the collaboration, sharing, and communication in one platform. No emails, nothing, everything goes through one platform. So you're right there and you're doing your work, right? So that's a key of how people need to start thinking now.
Sridhar mentioned, so much of this is a behavioral change. When you think about it, if the pandemic was only a couple of weeks, we probably would have reverted back to what was normal. But now that it's been going on for so long, so much has been normalized, it's changed our habits, but it's really changed our behaviors and our expectations. And so that is a big piece of what we're going to be talking about. And that behavior crosses how you work, what you expect from work. As I mentioned, the remote work, that's something now that new employees will be expecting. Can I work remotely even once things normalize? But that also gives you as a company a whole new opportunity to leverage talent in a new way. So all of these become behavioral changes, which is an important thing, just, back to your mindset, your perspective to understand. Amit, dive in, because you're seeing this play out on the remote workforce for sure. Security, I mean, there's so many things that cover on your end with trends, but talk about some of the major trends that you're seeing.
Yeah, thank you, Jeremy. One of the biggest things that the pandemic brought about was breaking the what we call it like a century old belief that you have to be in the office to perform your work, you have to be in the office to collaborate, we have to go to that whiteboard or run into the conference room and bring the team together. So that century old belief of no, you cannot work from home or certain tasks cannot be performed from home were just or they just kind of disappeared overnight. Right now there was no option, it was a mandate. Before this there was never a hard set mandate where it was like, nope, close it, go home. And this became a mandate, and that is what Sridhar is talking about. The mindset change was all of a sudden from going from thinking like, okay, well, maybe you can go home for half a day, or maybe you can go home for half a day, or some members can go home for half a day or a day or two. It was just the entire office, it was just people just went home, and then they had to start working from home. And that brought about a new complexity of making things available to the employees. So far the belief had always been so much focus on the client, and the focus on client has not been taken away, but in order to be able to serve your clients, you now had to make sure that your employees can work efficiently. So a lot of that focus shifted to making sure that your employees are able to perform their day-to-day jobs very effectively and very efficiently, and a whole lot of things got tied in onto the back end. So I will say this, that we will probably never go back to what was the norm, right? What was the pre-pandemic norm? If you look at any of the trends from corporate real estate to the trend that you mentioned about employee expectation, I have a strong belief that that's going to be one of the prerequisites for companies to hire good talent, is the ability for those employees to have that flexibility of being able to work, whether it's from home, whether it's from a Starbucks, whether it's from the office. But as long as the productivity is there and the results are there, companies now have to understand that the world has changed forever. And this change is not a temporary change. This is an absolute 100% permanent change. And if they don't adapt to that change, they will be left behind, because other companies will come in, scoop up those employees who want to have that flexibility. So anybody not wanting to change will definitely be left behind. So that's one of the biggest trends that we saw. And then on top of that, like you mentioned, making sure that when the employees are transacting or interacting with your data, the company's data, that's their biggest treasure, right? A company's gold is their data. So when they are transacting with that data from their homes, which were not built to be on secure networks, so all of a sudden it was like, okay, how do we not only secure our data, but also make sure that the employees can gain access to that? So a lot of things on the back end from a standpoint of having good connectivity. So everybody saw, I'm sure, with the kids working, studying from the house to, the couples working, all of a sudden the bandwidth needs increased. But also, I will say that, one of the things, kind of the new norm is now everybody's used to, kids in the background or your dog barking or other things. So it's brought about a completely new mindset and acceptance of how the companies work and how people interact. So that's the biggest trend change that we have seen.
Yeah, that's funny you mentioned, because I think with two virtual learners on our end, and then obviously my wife and I both working from home, we went through the bandwidth. We didn't realize that it wasn't unlimited. We went through the bandwidth in like 3 days. We got this email, you're past your bandwidth. And it's like, wait, what? So we had to go the highest tier, unlimited. It's like, you don't realize all those things until you're forced to think about it. But I think to your point too, companies and employees, back to productivity, they've figured out how to be accountable. And I think that was always something is, well, if employees are working from home, how do you hold them accountable? How do you hold them to those same standards of being in the office? And I think once again, going through this journey, companies have figured out, employees have figured out, okay, we can do this, we can be productive, we can be efficient, we can hold ourselves accountable to hit the goals and the metrics that we need to hit. So we'll talk about those behaviors too in a little bit deeper, deeper dive, but I think that's a really important trend, like you mentioned. Derek, Vinky, talk about some of the things that you're seeing in terms of the trends from your vantage point.
Absolutely, Jeremy. So I'll kick it off from an UpSquad and the whole virtual community standpoint. Even pre-pandemic, we have seen a lot of organizations are using a lot of these virtual solutions and technology. However, the adoption rate is less. But after pandemic, we have seen a huge adoption, especially from a lot of these organizations. And Amit and Sridhar talked about the whole behavioral change. Now that the pandemic has happened, and we have seen a faster adoption across every sector, because for every organization to survive, it is a must. So that's what happened. And even after pandemic, we have seen so many different technology companies offering their services for these organizations. However, one of the key challenges that we identified across the board is every organization started using, for example, 10 different tools in order to engage their audience or engage their users, which has become a big challenge for a lot of these organizations, because sometimes people are not aware of these technologies and they are resource constrained, and they need a lot of resources even to help with this technology change that has happened almost all of a sudden. So a lot of times the trends that we have seen in the organizations that we support across the US is they kind of duct tape like 10 different solutions in order to manage their engagement, because for them to survive and thrive in this virtual environment, it is very required to be able to connect the way that they have done it pre-pandemic. So that's where we have seen a lot of trends happening. And the one thing that we have kept in our mind from the get-go, even pre-pandemic, is to make it more easy and efficient. Because if we make it more easy and efficient, even after pandemic happened, we have seen a lot of organizations, if everything goes back to normal, they wanted to keep it in a hybrid environment. So that's where a lot of organizations are looking forward into the future. Even though everything goes back to normal, they still feel like there will be a need where organizations need to support their users who might be thinking they wanted these kind of solutions to engage their audience. So we have seen a faster adoption across the board, and a lot of these organizations might have a specific community that they are supporting. And we have seen the programs go beyond the communities that they were supporting pre-pandemic. In a lot of instances, they started supporting more and more audience because it's virtual now. And they were able to expand their programs beyond what they were able to support pre-pandemic. So there are a lot of great things happened, especially after the virtual environment, where we have seen a lot of organizations thrive in this pandemic as well. And especially for a lot of these organizations, it's very critical to also show the impact that they were able to create in their communities. So that's where we also come in and started helping a lot of these organizations in order to help them understand what kind of impact that they were able to make from these technologies. Because technology is great, we all know that. But at the end of the day, everybody wants to see the impact that they were able to get out of these technologies or the tools that they were using.
Yes. And to add on that, I just want to jog our memories and take a look back. So all of a sudden, events were canceled. All of a sudden, school was canceled. You couldn't go into work. You couldn't go to church. And so what that left is organizations to face decisions. What would have taken 10 years to do happened in 3 months. Organizations were first forced to start using virtual collaboration and to adopt that. So Zoom became a household name. I even saw Zoom on Saturday Night Live. It was all in the news. And that's just one virtual platform to how it became mainstream. So you had people that were 75, 80 years old now using Zoom, all the way down to the littlest kids. Anyone who had a smartphone or access to a pad could use Zoom to connect with family members as well as their organization. So Vinky mentioned the duct tape, and I'll explain a little more what that means. So all of a sudden, then we started having virtual events where hundreds or thousands of people who used to be face-to-face now were online. And you have virtual selling. So when you're selling to other businesses, it wasn't required to actually fly there and do a handshake and meet face-to-face to actually get business done selling. Also hiring. So now, as you all know, people are being hired without having set foot in the office just from meeting virtually. That was almost unheard of before, but it helps you hire people remotely and get the best talent no matter where they are. Even though we want you to hire from Memphis, but you can get the best talent truly now. And vice versa, people in Memphis can work for organizations now and stay in Memphis and live and work for organizations outside of Memphis. So the way we work, education, being taught virtually, virtual programming. Organizations were forced to do that along with membership. And what's truly needed is to take all of those members that were doing all of this activity face-to-face, no matter what it was, and now put them online in a virtual online community where they can communicate at will anytime they want. Because what's going to happen, this is a trend we're seeing. There will be a segment of people that want to come back together face-to-face. And because nothing beats face-to-face, nothing. There will also now be a segment that will demand virtual. They will demand, you're having this thing or this event, send me a video link, because there's just simply too much time savings. There's so much time savings and efficiency for the individual not having to travel there if it's not necessary. There's so much time and cost savings for the organization if they don't have to, rent a venue and have this venue and provide food and all of those things. So some are talking about that now, but you have to be prepared for both audiences now to really thrive and grow your organization.
Yeah, I want to touch on those two because I think, I know we have a lot of nonprofits on, and the expectation, because here's the reality, and we're in the event business with cityCURRENT, is that although the vaccine rates are going up and you're starting to see events come back in person, and I know we're all excited to host those events back in person, and we're looking forward to that as well with cityCURRENT, it's going to be a pretty long tailwind before people really feel comfortable. There's going to be early, adopters that want to come in and, they'll be fine and they're rocking and ready. But there are going to be a lot of people who are very reluctant to go out to, especially larger events. They still want to participate. They're still a part of your family, your sphere of influence. And so you want to be able to meet them where they are physically, just like Derek mentioned, but also mentally. And I think that's going to be the big thing. And, for nonprofits, something that we've already learned and adopted on our end is, red, yellow, and green. When someone checks in, they put a thing on their name tag that says red, keep your distance. Yellow, maybe an elbow bump. Green, maybe a fist bump. But allowing people to safely and comfortably choose where they are mentally is going to be a really key factor of bringing these events back in person. And a big piece of that is you're going to be kind of forced in a good way to host hybrid events and offer some sort of, whether it's on demand or streaming, so that people can be engaged who don't feel comfortable coming out in person. So there's going to be a long tailwind before everyone in the community feels safe coming back out. And that's going to be something that plays out. The other one that I think really is important that Derek touched on again is now people have realized, and I'm a good example, is I can be so much more efficient. I don't have to spend hours driving around. I can knock out all these on Zoom and be just as productive. What it's going to do is it's going to really make the in-person experience that much more exclusive. You're going to know pretty fast who really wants to meet with you in person, who really wants to come out and support your event in person, because otherwise it's, hey, let's just jump on a Zoom. Hey, let's do this. Hey, let's just go online. So I think this, back to events and back to meetings, just everyday meetings, this now really is the new norm. And you've got to figure out how to leverage it appropriately and effectively to be able to still, sell and reach your customers and your clients and do what you need to do to fulfill your mission. So anyway, I think those are big trends to understand at a broad level so that you understand what you're dealing with. I'm a big believer in, if you know the rules of the game and you know how to play, you can play to win. So let's go ahead and dive in. Sridhar, on your end, you've already painted the picture of the trends of your world. Give us your top tips when it comes to how nonprofits, businesses, schools, how can they leverage technology in new ways to be more impactful?
Sure. I think there are a few things that people need to think about in technology acceleration and for the future ready, right? One is thinking technology not as a capital expense, but more as an operational expense. So how do you get there? That is subscription models, pay as you go, right? Also, the other thing that people need to think about is how do you harvest your data and intelligence, right? So harvesting data and intelligence, and it has to be out of the box. You don't want to spend too much time and money because things are changing so fast. But the data and the intelligence is the key for your company to be different from the other company, right? So that's the key. Then how do you collaboration in the cloud, right? So how do you get a collaboration? You need to think like an app platform model, which is like I said earlier, very easy to build third-party integrations. The API today it's a completely API an infrastructure API model, business models today. And then also thinking about how do you bring into one platform that's easy to adopt, right? So one of the things we have seen, like I mentioned earlier, was everybody has Office 365, but why are people not using? Because there is no adaptation strategy within the company. So the right training, right adoption, and right governance, which is the key in most of the technology implementations, is the governance is not there. So somebody might be using a piece of the software, but other person is not using. Now they're trying to collaborate. They couldn't because one person is not using the app, other person is using the app. And they get frustrated and they don't use the whole technology itself, which they have in their back pocket. And the most important thing for the future ready is having the cutting edge user experience. User experience drives adoption, both in, so when I say user experience, not only just for your customers, but also for the employees. So having those seven is very, very important to be future ready. And if you're not in any one of those, you are going to be left out because everything is moving in that direction. And people that have already started moving in that direction is seeing a huge impact on the return on their investments.
Share the example of DataFax, and also to share when a new employee comes on your team, how you set the mindset right off the bat of, we don't want you using email. We don't want, like, go ahead and set, when you talk about creating the culture for the adoption, talk about that, and then talk about some of the efficiencies that you're seeing with some of the companies like DataFax.
Yeah, I mean, like one thing I can tell, culture is the number one obstacle for change, right? So that's the key. So setting the tone, for example, in our company, we don't use emails, internal, there is no internal email. So nobody should be using an internal email. Everybody uses our Teams. We completely use the Office 365 platform. Everything goes through Teams, and we have a certain governance within the Teams. When we use chat, when we use our Teams, for all our clients are also part of our team. So every conversation, everything is very transparent. Everybody knows what is happening within a project, and everybody is communication to that. So that's a big mindset shift itself. So we have plenty of clients that we have engaged during the pandemic, and it's only growing exponentially for us, for people wanting to be a completely digital transformed company. Like what Jeremy was saying is, as we are bringing companies, the mindset we are creating is, don't think about email as your communication channel. That immediately pushes a lot of people thinking that, oh, what do I need to do? that's when we show them how to adopt, right? How, and during training using Teams, and Teams is right today is one of the best platforms to collaborate, share, and communicate, and integrate a lot of other applications into it. So like we have clients right in Memphis too, like DataFax and all. So we are bringing them, moving away from email and bringing all of their components into Teams, so that they're at one place, they're using one work space using Teams, and do everything that they do on a day to day. And we are automating a lot of their processes, which used to take, right? So if you're doing the same process all the time, the same task, all of them are automated. And again, when a lot of people think automation, it takes months, years. No, now the new way of how like API management and the Power Apps and Power Automate, it takes hours to automate a lot of your processes. So just the doing just the basic things, your productivity rate would increase 20 to 30% right off the bat. So now you can get so much of your time back, to where as a humans we are very good at thinking, right, and delivering a lot of through our mind, right? So using that resources and your so that you don't have to do mundane work, but use that resource to actually do a more innovation, right, more creative work within your company. So that's a very, very important thing that people have now realized how technology could really help them. And like, because you're online and you are at one space, so you don't have to go back and forth, your efficiency is increasing, your productivity is increasing, and then you don't have drive times if you're working from home. So you can take a lot of work and do a lot of work at very quick pace, without thinking about all the other stress that you have to go to work and then driving and coming back. And so I think there's huge productivity increase because of bringing everything into digital.
We're already starting to get some questions. Holly will answer your question in just a little bit. Amit, go ahead and share your top tips, and then we'll start answering some of these questions after Derek and Vinky go. But Amit, go ahead and dive into your world. Share some of your top recommendations.
Yes, sure. Thank you, Jeremy. In addition to everything that Sridhar has mentioned, I will say that the top three recommendations that I could possibly make is: one is cloud adoption, second is security, and third is training. And I will very briefly kind of get into all three. First is the cloud adoption. Again, like I had mentioned, that the world changed overnight, right? So now the biggest roadblock that the organizations faced when they were asked to go home was the collaboration, right? How are we going to be able to make all the team members work together? Sitting in the office, there was a lot of just, hey, walk over to somebody's desk or ask for something. So all of that just disappeared. So it's not only being able to have the access to the data, it's about being able to leverage that data and to work in a collaborative fashion in the best, fastest, and easiest possible way. You have to be first in front of your client. And the only way you will be able to do that is when you are able to have your employees work most efficiently and then deliver that in a very efficient manner to your client as well. So cloud adoption is a very key element that organizations should embrace now. If you've not already embraced, there's still time. And it's very easy. The cloud companies have made it so easy to do the migration, so easy to operate, so easy to manage the backend infrastructure, that it's just almost a no brainer that why organizations would not do that. Now, with that comes security. You have to absolutely make sure that your data is protected. So from endpoint security of having a good antivirus system, making sure that your systems are patched properly and that the employees are leveraging the two-factor authentication, and there are some additional measures that can be put in place for securing the data, is very important. Nowadays, again, just kind of using the example of so many, like the families working from home, you get into that complacent thing of, okay, well, there's nobody else seeing it, it's just my kid, so if the computer screen is on, it doesn't matter. No, it still matters. There are hackers who could easily hack into your systems if you don't have good endpoint security. So all those elements are still very important, with the phishing scams on the rise just everybody out there to get your data. You have to make sure that it's safe and secure. And lastly, I would say training is a very key element that we have seen that a lot of companies ignore. Again, just kind of going back to this thing of, yes, let's put Office 365 as a collaborative tool on the back end. Hey, we push this out, everybody start using Teams. Okay, well, half the team doesn't even know what Teams is, right? So just having that expectation or just pushing out a platform is not the right way to just handle it, right? So that regular continuous training to the employees is very, very important. We have put a lot of focus and effort on not only training our internal team, but extending that to our clients, that we will come, whether it is through an online medium or come to your to your platform, basically, whether it's through recorded sessions or whether doing through virtual meetings. But please make sure that there is proper training, especially after you have rolled out any kind of a platform. It just becomes very critical, because I will tell you, and maybe Sridhar can vouch for it as well, is about 80% of the tools are lost within the first 2 to 3 months because of lack of training. And that's where companies waste so much money and time and effort. So I would say that training element is very key.
I just want to add on what Amit said is perfect. And so our strategy of adoption, so we call it an adoption strategy for technology, any technology implementation. So we have four step process. One is setting up the right vision at the leadership level. Like, what is the vision of this implementation? The second is how do you provide the awareness? How do people know this is coming and what this does and how it's going to be productive or how it's going to be useful for them? We look at three different levels. We take the Navy approach, which is the shipmate, and me, right? So how does what you do impact your team? How does what the team does impact the company? So that's the awareness process we show and talk about even before we do anything. And then the third is the training. How do you train everything based on the vision they need to go? It's all aligned to their vision. And the fourth one is governance, which is very, very important. Is if you don't set the governance, people do whatever they want, and that's what's happening in today's world. So those four things are very, very important. And the one last thing I want to touch on what Amit there is the cloud, which is the key. Everything needs to move into cloud. Every company needs to be a cloud native. And we have set up 4 different phases to get there, because you can't overnight pack everything and get into cloud, right? So we got like one, we call it a sustain. You need to sustain first. What are the things we can lift and shift into cloud, right? And the second thing is optimize. How do we optimize, right? Lift and reshape, right? So we probably need to reshape your data, right? So from your EC2 or your RDS, and then drop and shop. Some of the stuff you're doing, you need drop off and shop for new things, right? So we help them in that. And then we go into growth, what is we call is a re-architecture. We're going to re-architecture their whole enterprise architecture. And then you have the new completely cloud native architecture, which is you can grow as fast as you can as things get disrupted. You don't have to worry about, which would be like serverless, cloud native solutions. So those are the 4 approaches you need to get before you get into cloud, especially a lot of traditional companies.
Good stuff. Derek, Vinky, go ahead and share your tips, and then we'll start diving into these questions. And
Sure.
actually, yeah, Allison, I want you to, I don't know if Allison, she's not expecting to be a panelist, but I think she'd be a really good one to answer the question for Holly. So I might have Allison. So Allison, you're on the batter's deck. We might pull you into this. All right, Vinky, Derek, share your tips.
Great, no problem. I think the main thing we would share is that having a website or traditional e-commerce or communicating with people on social media, that's no longer good enough. It's not enough to really thrive where we're headed now and where we already are. So you're probably already realizing that as an organization. And but it's a great opportunity. It is an opportunity to pull your members and your employees, all of these people, whether it's through mentoring or whether it's through advising or counseling or whether it's through, however you use this platform or project work, pulling people in closer to each other virtually. So this is a tremendous opportunity now that everyone has gotten used to using video on their computers or on their phones. Let's pull them in closer to the organization. It makes it easier to communicate with them. And what I would like to do is quickly show how. I'm going to share my screen. So this is Leadership Memphis. So many of you are probably Leadership Memphis alumni. So what they have done is they were forced to have their executive class and fast track class make it virtual. So they adopted UpSquad to do that, to have those classes. So what it's done is it's created this environment for those who are going through these classes to now be able to not only communicate virtually during the class, but also do their side work and project work and stay on top of each other and message one another through instant messaging. So imagine these LinkedIn type of profiles where Zoom is automatically built in. So that's exactly what they've done at Leadership Memphis. Also, there's a social page. So you have your own social page where you can communicate announcements and events and videos, jobs. So it's very flexible to use for a variety of areas. And so also Youth Job Center, this is another organization out of Chicago. So they are pairing up individuals in the community, professionals with youth in the community to help guide them in their career. So they're posting items out to this audience. So now you have people in this area as well, in the Chicago area that we're communicating with. And so what it is a network of networks. It's a tremendous network of networks where now not only your organization has its own private network, but your adult individuals can communicate to others in other networks as well. So it's created this huge environment that organizations in ways they could not connect before. So we can't stress that enough. This is what organizations truly love about it, is this network of network, both the best of the internal plus the external, to really thrive in this hybrid environment that we're in right now, with the face-to-face and the virtual bringing them all together.
And a couple of things I just wanted to add there. Thanks, Derek, for showing the platform. And a lot of organizations are constrained with, like, let's say an organization might have 20 or 30 Zoom licenses, and they were constrained just with the number of Zoom licenses that they might have. So always look for solutions that actually eliminates a lot of these limitations, the technology that we are already using. So one example, like Derek has just shown how a lot of these organizations have already started using UpSquad in order to bridge those kind of gaps. And also the user experience. From a user adoption standpoint, I think Sridhar has touched upon this previously. User experience is the most critical piece for a lot of these users who are getting onboarded, because we are already seeing a lot of very good engagement. We know that for a fact that because we made it very easy for people to come on board and interact with one another. For example, we are all in a Zoom call right now. For example, if I wanted to reach out to Jeremy, I need to send him an email or need to connect with somebody else who might be able to help me get in touch with Jeremy. Imagine a virtual community where you're already being a part of these multiple organizations, where it is very seamless for you to schedule an appointment as well. So I just wanted to add those couple of points as well.
Yeah, I think the key for all of this is understanding your audience, understanding the value proposition, understanding how to, and not just understand it, but constantly be looking for ways to improve efficiencies, reduce friction, and make the experience that much more robust. Let's go ahead and dive into the questions. So we're already starting to get some questions. So I would encourage, you, if you have a question, you can put it in the chat box or the Q&A feature. We'll start diving into these. The first one comes from Holly Cooper, and she says, can you touch on how to protect organizations from people hacking a Zoom meeting with derogatory racist language? And knock on wood, this is luckily something that we haven't ourselves experienced firsthand, but we have seen other organizations sadly experience this. And so we've had to learn on our end how to lock down permissions and there are differences between a Zoom meeting and a Zoom webinar in terms of the functionality and what you can lock down. But that's where I felt Allison, who kind of sets up our stuff, I want to have her add her 2 cents, and then we can throw it out to the panel. But Allison, go ahead and turn on your camera and turn on your microphone, and give Holly your recommendation when it comes to locking down the Zoom meetings.
Yeah, Holly, that's a great question. Something that I've worked on extensively just because there is that fear for us. And so we primarily, for this reason, use a Zoom webinar. There are more features and controls in terms of like turning people's cameras on and off that we would have in a meeting. So in a webinar, it really serves our function that we use a little better. So because we're more of like a presentation type group, webinars work for us. So avoid using your personal ID. Everybody has their own personal meeting ID, but Zoom will automatically generate one that's specifically for your meeting. So you definitely want to make sure that you're doing that. In the webinar function, we actually, for events like this one that we're sharing publicly through social media, we lock the chat so that people that chat, only the panelists can see it. And so Jeremy or the host or panelist can sort of talk about what's happening in the chat, but each individual attendee can't see that. And the reason we do that is because you cannot delete something out of a chat once it's in there. So you can kick someone out of the meeting, but you can't go back and delete what's in the chat. So we point people to the Q&A feature. And so we can choose to show or hide those or delete them. And then also just familiarize yourself with the controls of Zoom. So you can actually kick people out of a meeting. You can make it to where they can't rejoin. You can add authenticated users only. So only people who have Zoom accounts can join. So you're not coming in from some crazy computer. And then we really try to do private invites as much as possible. So, in situations like this where we are broadcasting live, we have more controls, but most of our events are, there's several steps. You must register to attend. You have your own specific link. So we kind of lock it down a lot, but that is definitely, you lose some of the interactivity, but to us, it's important because we don't want to experience something like that for sure.
And I want to add on to that from a Zoom standpoint. So note that we have become, since we're Zoom resellers at UpSquad, we have become Zoom experts. So please reach out to us. We have all of the Zoom features, the top of the top features built in, where it can handle up to 1,000 people and beyond, the webinar as well. And so please reach out to us. That information will be shared with you after the event.
Yeah, and I think one of the other things too, Holly, is that, for instance, even on this, you have Allison behind the scenes, Andrew behind the scenes. So behind the scenes, we have a whole team that is managing the experience. So although you see me on the front end with the panelists, behind the scenes, we have people that are playing their roles to make sure that we police things, navigate, can pop up things, like we can kind of work in real time and troubleshoot anything that happens. And I think that's a big thing too, is just having a team behind the scenes managing any of these events. And even for Zoom meetings, there's a lot of things that we can dive into. But anyone else want to add any more on that question?
Well, Jeremy, I'll just quickly mention this, that, to your point, exactly, having that control and making sure that there is one host who is kind of like the admin. You have the other people on the background, but you have to make sure that if you want to lock it down, Zoom has now started issuing passcodes as well, where you have to add a second passcode to be able to enter the meeting. So make sure that feature is enabled. But more than anything else, having a primary host who is basically like the complete admin, where, you launch everybody in a mute mode and then you can control it. That's where you can really not lock it down.
Yep. Let's do this. Let's go ahead, because we will send out a thank you for attending email with the contact information. So you can reach out to each one of the panelists individually, carry the conversation forward, ask a lot of questions, just like Derek mentioned. Let's go Sridhar on your end. We'll go Sridhar, Amit, and then Derek and Vinky. Give us your words of encouragement, your parting words of encouragement for everyone. So Sridhar, words.
Sure. I think the one good thing about everything that has happened now is we know that you don't have to have a huge enterprise right now today to really succeed and thrive in business. You could be one person show and use completely cloud and can really win and thrive in your business. So I think that's the big two takeaways is in today's world, you can be one person show and still be very, very successful, and by implementing the right technology in a right way. I think that's one thing. So and one important thing you need to think about is, again, like I really do want to touch the behavioral part, right? So technology can do two things. Either your technology is helping change somebody's behavior, or if people change their behavior, they get value out of technology. For example, changing behavior is like your nutrition app or your fitness app, right? It is changing your behavior. But then if you change your behavior, you can extract a lot of value. That is like your Uber, right? Your food delivery things, where if you change how you're doing your business, it's going to, you extract more value out of it. So think about it. What is it? Which area are you in? And apply that behavioral techniques so that your company can grow and thrive.
See, Sridhar is almost like a psychologist, just as much of it as a technologist. Psychologist and technologist. All right, Amit, words of encouragement.
Yeah, the biggest thing that I can say to anybody and everybody here is that even though there are a lot of bad things and elements associated with this pandemic, nobody wanted it. One of the biggest thing that this pandemic has done is the adoption of technology. And out of that, what it has done is it has level set the playing field more than anybody can ever imagine. Gone are the days of, I don't want to send 5 people out there. I don't want to expense, these 5 people going out there and spending money on the hotels or flying out there and spending money on expensive tickets. So now with the adoption of technology, the playing field is so much more leveled. So that excuse of not making that initiative is gone. So with the adoption of technology and with a proper plan in place, the big businesses and the small businesses are all able to go after the same thing and have a fair chance. So that's my biggest word of encouragement is leverage technology. You can be at that same level playing field as a Fortune 500 company.
Derek, Vinky?
Yes, I'll start off. The biggest opportunity is if you make it easy for people to connect. People want to connect now more than ever before. You make it easy for them with your organization. You will bring more members in. You will make your members happier. They will work together like never before. So if you just make it easy, they will come. You promote it, they will come. And we've seen it over and over again. So this is a tremendous opportunity. Don't fight this. Go with it, ride this wave, and take full advantage of it for the good of your organization.
Just adding on top of it, just constant learning. I think as we are moving in this pandemic and beyond, there is a lot of things, especially in the technology front. There is a lot of research that's going on as well. So I think I would encourage a lot of people to keep constantly learning what's happening in and around us, and don't be afraid to fail, because a lot of times we just need that one opportunity to experiment. So do that experimentation and everything is going to be all right. So that's one thing that I want to share.
Well, let's go ahead and give our panelists a round of applause. We appreciate our panelists and their time, their expertise and experience, and for sharing that. So thank you to our panelists. We appreciate you tuning in, and we'll see you again next time. Thank you, everyone.